Hello, my name's John. This is one of my Legion of the Damned conversions, and you're watching War Games, Models, and Other Hobbies. Hello and welcome to another video. Today I am going to be painting a Legion of the Damned conversion that I have recently made. This was the first model that I made for this little squad that I'm working on, and you can see it's a very simple paint scheme just to get the idea of those kind of fires and bones that depict the Legion of the Damned's iconography. Now the model that I've got was another little conversion where I've got this Legionnaire firing a bolter, and then I've sculpted on other details dotted around this model. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to run through how I do this painting scheme, and by the end of this video I'll have a second Legion of the Damned Legionnaire. So to start with, what I need to do is complete all of the black armour. I don't normally use a black primer, but in this case I have done, just for speeding up the process because most of the armour is black. If I was doing something with only small amounts of black in it, I'd do my standard white primer and then paint the whole thing. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to dry brush the whole of this model with a layer of Skaven Blight Dinge. Now, because the whole model is going to have this finish, I can be quite indiscriminate with the way that I dry brush this, so I'm not worried too much if I get it in the wrong places. This is one method that I use for creating a black armour, and I know that on the camera it looks like I'm being quite heavy-handed with this dry brush, but it's okay for what I'm wanting to do. But I am having a few ideas with this model about how I want it to look. I want to create a whole squad of these eventually, but again, with what I've been doing over the last few months, using items from my bits box and leftover projects to convert them, that's exactly what I've done here. So leftover bits of other projects, there we go, have gone towards making this model. So I've dry brushed that first coat all over. Now what I want to do is another dry brush of a slightly lighter grey. So I have another dry brush there, a little bit worse for wear this one, I need to clean it. And I'm going to go for a dry brush of Mechanicus Standard Grey. So let's get a small amount of that on the brush, and then take most of it off on my palette. And I want to be slightly more careful with this one. There we go. So that's 2 coats of dry brush over the whole thing, and I'm not going to wait too long for that to dry, as the next coat is the one that takes a lot longer to kind of dry off once I've painted it. So I'm going to get my wash brush and I'm going to get some Nuln Oil, and I'm going to cover all of the black armour in Nuln Oil. So it takes a little bit of time, this one, because it is painting the whole model, but I'll start at the legs. and I just want to cover the whole thing. And this will give a nice even coat of black to the whole model. And what I'll probably do as well, once I've done further details later on, is add even more Nuln Oil to certain areas to darken them off. This will quickly get that black armour that I'm looking for. And I can use this for other black armours as well. So I have my recently completed Death Watch Watch Commander, that I can paint their armour in a similar way to this. May start with a white base coat for that one, I'm not sure yet, I haven't decided. Just because there's other details on the model themselves. As you can see, I'm being quite indiscriminate with this Nuln Oil just to get everything covered. And what I'll most likely do, I'm not going to force this to dry with the hairdryer like I have done in previous videos. I'm going to let this dry naturally. It might take a few minutes, it might take a little bit longer, I'm not too sure, but I'll keep an eye on it. So for you guys, by the time I've finished going over this with the Nuln Oil and then letting it dry, will only be a cut scene, but for me it might be a little bit longer, but that doesn't matter. Okay, I'm just going to do the backpack now. Okay, I think I've got most areas now. So that was a black primer, then a dry brush of Skaven Blight Dinge, followed by another dry brush of Mechanicus Standard Grey, and then a wash all over with some Nuln Oil. So as you can see, it's going to take a little bit of time to dry, so we will wait for it to dry and then I'll go on to the next step. Okay, so this has dried really quite nicely now. So the next step is a few of the details. So I'm going to start with the belt pouches, and that's going to be using some Rhinox hide. So the one thing I really like about the Legion of the Damned is the mystery that surrounds them. There's one of the theories that they are the remains of the Firehawks chapter that got lost in the warp, and they now appear as the Legion of the Damned, which is a very strong theory, but then why would you have Primaris ones? So in my headcanon, I'm kind of thinking of the other theory that they are representations of the equivalent of demons for the Emperor, manifestations in the warp. And I quite like this idea because it also kind of it fits with both theories, that the Firehawks were lost in the warp, and yes, they could have become Legion of the Damned. But then likewise, the manifestation of the Emperor's power in the warp create them as the equivalent of demons, which is another interesting route. Okay, so I've done the pouches. Next thing, I'm going to do metals, so I'm going to go with some lead belcher. But yeah, I quite like the idea of, obviously there wouldn't be Primaris Legion of the Damned initially, but over time I kind of like the idea that as more battles are fought, more Primaris are lost, the manifestation of them in the warp starts to become bigger, and we end up with Legion of the Damned appearing as Primaris Space Marines. Also, for me, it kind of gets rid of that scale creep, which I love the original Space Marines. I think they're great. I have lots of them. But I do find it difficult to have them alongside the new Primaris ones, which it's my personal opinion and the scale that they are. But it doesn't stop you having them without Primaris alongside them. But then on the other hand, in my head, Space Marines should all be Primaris size. When you look at the old Inquisitor models from the game, the Space Marine model, which I do have, I might do a video on that one day, is at a height that kind of matches Primaris Marine models now to other models. So yeah, it's one of those things where it's just down to the scale of models when they were first created, and now this update creating them to a better scale. Saying that, there are a lot more units from the original Space Marines that I prefer to some of the more current Primaris ones. And I will be doing a video in the future of how to depict those as Primaris Marines, as one of my homebrew Space Marine chapters does that. Okay, so that is silver on the back. Let's just get the little button, or the latch, whatever it is on there. Okay. So yeah, this whole paint scheme, I kind of like it to be generally simple when it comes to models that you're going to have a lot of. Reason being, you're going to be painting a lot of them, so you don't want to be spending too long trying to paint all of them if you want to get them all on the battlefield, or all on your display shelf, whatever you're looking for. Now, what do I do with the little computer? Right, that's what I'm going to do. So, buttons are going to be silver. And then I know what I'm going to do with the screen. That's going to be a later on job. Right. Now on the head, it's just these earpieces. And then I'll do some details on the back as well. But I'll leave most of it black. And now the gun. So I think this is a bolt carbide that I had left over. But it kind of suited the idea I had for this conversion, where obviously they're shooting one-handed, and I think those shells are from Manius Calgar, and I sculpted the front. I'll put some pictures up on the screen at the moment of the model while I was mid-conversion. I did take some pictures, and they show all the different kind of bits, because I used models that I'd already started working on, and then I took them apart to then model this. So yeah, I'll put those up on screen while I'm painting and chatting. So the plan is to get all of the gunmetal done. I've got a dry brush over the Rhinox hide, and then I'm going to let that dry for a little while, and then when that is dried I'm going to go over all necessary detail with white, and then after that it's another Nuln Oil for the places that need it, and then it's onto the flames. Do I do that handle as well? No, I'm going to leave that handle, but I will paint the base of this handle. And then I've just got to do the top. So I'm thinking of doing a few more Legion of the Damned models. If you'd like to see that process, so the sculpting of their flames, the bones on their armour, which I haven't put any bones on this one. This one is all about the flames, but I think the way I'm thinking of painting his head will mitigate the lack of bones on this model. But yeah, it'd be nice to have a squad of them. Also have to say, it's nice to be doing a bit of painting again. It's the bit of the hobby that I really do enjoy the most, to complete the models and everything. But anyway, okay, that is all the metals I can see at the moment. So next one, let's get a, oh, that's quite a ropey dry brush, but that's okay. The Rakarth flesh, I'm going to put a little bit of that on the holsters. Gonna need to get some new Rakarth flesh soon. Mine's a little bit dry, but this is just to pick up those edges. There we go. Okay. So that is the metal work done and the pouches. One thing actually I want to put on the pouches quite quickly is a quick coat of Agrax Earthshade, and then I will let all of this dry before going on to the next step. So I know I've just dry brushed it, but because it's a dry brush it doesn't take too long to dry, but I just want to get a coat of this on. There we go. Okay, so that's the Agrax. So I'm going to let those bits dry, and then the next step will be painting white over all the relevant detail. So join me in a second. Okay, so the next step is going to be some Corax white on all the areas that I want detail to be. So this is going to be where I'm going to paint the fire, if there's any other details, such as, I think there's a purity seal and that kind of stuff. So let's start on this leg, and what I'm looking to do is just paint the detail of the fire. I've kind of gone over a little bit on one bit. I've got too much paint on my brush, but never mind, I can tidy that up. Let me just quickly with a wet brush, just knock that back slightly. That's okay, that's fine. Okay. Let's move on to this one just here. Now I need to take my time when I do this, as the fire detail that I sculpted isn't a very kind of textured detail, so it'd be easily overwhelmed with any paint. Just want to take my time as I do that. And then when the white's dry, I'll go over this with some reds and yellows. That's that bit good. Okay, I've got that purity seal to do. It'd be really nice to get a squad of these put together. I've got a few ideas on how they could be fielded on the battlefield. So it's a kind of a count-as situation, but I'll save that for another video. What I will say at the moment, if you're enjoying my real-time painting videos, where you get to see how long the whole process takes, please drop a like, and if you've got any suggestions, throw it in the comments. One thing that I'm always working on is making sure that I'm actually working on screen rather than accidentally coming off screen. I've slightly gone over in two places, so what I'm going to briefly do, I'm going to get some Skaven Blight Dinge and just touch up those areas, because I am going to be going over things with another wash again. But I want to make sure that I'm kind of, there we go. I'm not putting too much white where it's not meant to be. Right, back to the white. Let's carefully do the little skull on the chest plate. There we go. Just carefully paint these flames. Apologies if this keeps going out of focus while I'm moving it around. Yeah, I quite like doing the real-time painting videos because it lets you see the actual time it takes to do something, which is a little bit more realistic than some videos you sometimes get, which jump in and out from something not being done to ta-da, it's all done. It's nice to see things at the pace that they actually take to do. So, okay, so I'm going to paint the mask now on the face. I am going to leave the rest of the head for now, because it's something that I am going to work on in a bit with some different colours. Because the one thing that stands out with obviously this one is there is no helmet, whereas the previous one I did has a helmet. So it's going to mean that there's going to be a few different details. Okay. Oops, that's gone off screen a bit. Okay. So the final bit that I'm going to paint white are the shell casings and the bullet casings and the plume of fire or smoke, whatever it is, coming out of the muzzle blast. The muzzle flash, that was it. That's it, the muzzle flash. Because what I want to do with these, going along with the theme of the Grey Knights and the way that they are kind of spectral apparitions, I'm going to paint the muzzle flash and the shell casings in the ghostly green that I did do on, let me grab that quickly, on the eyes on the original one that I did, because obviously this one doesn't have a helmet, so it doesn't have those eyes. So I want to depict the bullets coming out of this one as spectral bullets. If I don't like it, I'm just going to paint over the top of it. But for now, let's do it as if I know it's going to work 100%, and then we can go from there. Okay, so that is... I'm going to leave the computer screen for now because I'm not too sure what I want to do. I don't want to put too much colour everywhere because it kind of defeats the look of what I'm going for. Okay, so that is the white done. What I want to do now, let's grab another paint so I can do the top of the head. I'm going to use the Pallid Witch Flesh for the head. So obviously it doesn't have a skull head, this one, but it is a bald marine. And I want it to come across as looking like a skull. I'm going to mix a bit of that Pallid Flesh with some Corax on my palette. Okay, there is the first. Okay, let me just, before I finish up the white, let me just check that I've done everything on that. Yeah, okay. So next step, before I get onto the fire and the rest of the head, I'm going to use some Nuln Oil to tidy up the edges of any of the white, go over some of the white for some bits, go over all the metalwork. So pretty much cover a lot of it again, but also go over things like the pouches to knock them back. So let's cover that with Nuln Oil. Yeah, I'll leave a list in the description of all the paints that I've used for this, in case anyone wants to have a go. So the skull on the chest plate, that is getting covered in Nuln Oil because it's not going to get any white on it. Sorry, not white, any of the flames on it, so that will just fill in some of the details on there. Go over the buttons on the wrist there. And backpack. More Nuln Oil. But yeah, it's really nice to be painting again, and I really like doing a model in one sitting. So although there's drying time in this video, let's make sure I'm on video, although there's drying time on this video while I'm working, it is the only thing that I'm working on right now, so whatever the time frame is for you witnessing it, it's only a little bit longer for me as I paint this and sort it all out. That's a little bit more. Let's go over the bottom of the purity seal. Apologies if you can hear my stomach rumbling. When I'm letting this dry, I'm going to go and make some food. Until then, every so often you're going to hear my stomach rumble. If my mic's picking it up, if not, you're going to think, what's he talking about? I'm probably using a brush that's a little bit too small for this part of the process. Never mind. Okay, I just noticed that I did miss a section that I should have painted with the lead belcher. So, what I'm going to quickly do, there's my lead belcher, there's the lead belcher. It's easily missed when you're painting a mini and chatting, but I just want to make sure that I do the inside of this section of the gun. There we go. So I'm going to have to let that dry a little bit longer before I put wash on it, but I've still got to put the wash around the head and the mask. Now, an important thing, which I have to make sure, is I don't have the eyes too filled with the okay. need to just clear out some of the wash from the eye. Okay, that's okay. Right, I'm going to risk it and put a bit of wash straight onto that lead belcher that I've just done. It's still a little bit wet, but don't mind. It's hidden in there, so. Okay, let's wait for this next bit to dry before we go on to the last set of details. Okay, so I've eaten and I've let this dry, and as you can see we've got a nice dulled down colour to all the metallics, and we're ready to go to the next stage of painting. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the bullet shells and the muzzle flash. I'm going to use some Gauze Blaster green for that. As I was saying, the ethereal spectral look of the Legion of the Damned is what's inspiring me to do the weaponry like this. Also, I realised I said Grey Knights instead of Legion of the Damned. But yeah, just having a bit of a play around with this. If I don't like it, I can just repaint this to a more realistic colour for that element. But yeah, I'd really like to hear what you all think about my real-time painting videos, whether it's something that you like because you like to see how long it actually takes to paint these models, or you prefer them cut down, or if there were two versions. There was, excuse me, that's the dog behind me. If there was a full version, uncut, and then a cut down version that just shows the key things, what colours I use, doesn't have me talking. Right, so now that that's almost done, let me just get that in there. There we go. Right, just deal with the dog. Okay, so that is that part of it done there. The next part I want to do is for the fire. I'm going to start by using some contrast paint and paint all of the sections of fire with that, because I need to let that dry for a little bit longer than I normally would with normal paints. So I'm aware if I go over the edges with this, I can tidy it up a little bit before I get onto the next stages. But for now I just want to get this contrast paint over the white sections that I've painted up. Now let's do the shoulder pad. So yeah, like I said, I'm going to leave a list in the description of all the paints that I've used. And what I will do, I'll put time codes in, I think, for each of the main sections as I paint this. Okay. That is all of the yellow. So the next step, what I'm going to do, I'm going to do a little bit of painting on the head. And what I'm going to use, I've got a red wash. There are equivalents to this one now, but yeah, it is no longer made, but I do like the way that it paints. And what I'm going to do is just around the edge, I want to put the red. But what I also want to do with some water is thin it down as well. How's that look on the screen? Is it blurry? It's a little bit blurry. Apologies if it's not coming out cleanly on the screen. There we go. Yeah, so I can now let that start drying a little bit. Okay, so things I need to think about. Now I need to do some red contrast paint on the purity seal and the bottom sections of the fire. And this is only small amounts, I don't want to use too much on the fire, but we'll start with that purity seal. Okay, so the next step is a little bit along the bottom of wherever there's the fire. And I'm still kind of working out how to do the fire and what I exactly want it to look like, but this is kind of, it worked on the previous model that I did, so I'm kind of sticking with it. On this one. So then the next thing I want to do with the red is I'm going to go back for that red wash. This one is quite thick, so that's probably why it needs a little bit of washing with some water as well, but I'm just gonna run this around to kind of get a little bit of an orange base. There we go. Okay, I'm happy with that at the moment. So, the next step, let's get some green wash for the weapon. So I'm going to use some Thraka green, which again, this isn't available anymore, but there are the equivalents. And I'll put the equivalents in the list of paints as well. Let's see how this spectral muzzle flash ends up looking. And what I will do at the very end of the video as well is I'll have a little gallery of photos of this, so you can see it a little bit clearer in case it's not fully coming out on camera. Okay. Yeah, I'm liking the look of the spectral gunfire there. That's, yeah. Okay. Right. So let me have a little look and see what the next step is. I'm really happy with the way this is all turning out now. So next step is the base. So let me get a spreader, and for this I'm going to use this technical paint, the Agrillan Earth, I think that's how you pronounce it, and this is the one that crackles. So what I tend to do with this one, this is when I'm going to force dry something. So I'll quickly plug the hairdryer in, so I've got that ready. And what I want to do is get some of it up on the tool. Just carefully pick this up. And I'm going to spread this on the base. I'm going to need quite a bit more, I think. That's okay. Put a few drops of it around. I really should have put this on a painting base, but that's okay for now. This is the stage where I could really make things go wrong if I put this texture paint in the wrong place. But let's just take a time and spread this on. Okay. Now I was thinking, with the little computer screen on this guy's arm, I was thinking of doing it the same colour as the spectral bullet casings and muzzle fire, but I think I'm going to just leave it black for now. I might change it later on, but for now just going to leave it as is. Okay, so next step, let's clean that tool thoroughly. There we go. And now I'm going to use the hairdryer on this. And what I will do, I'll turn the volume down while I'm doing this, but I'll do it so it's real speed so you can see how the base starts to crack. Hopefully I'm not going to accidentally melt any of the detail that I've sculpted, but let's just start it and I'll turn the volume down. Okay, so if I can get that in focus, you can see how that's all kind of cracked up now. So what I want to do first, let me get a wash brush. I'm going to cover it in Agrax Earthshade. So this is one of the generic ways I tend to do my bases. So just want to go over the whole thing with the Agrax. Yeah, really happy with how this one's turning out now. And like I said, if you enjoy the real-time painting videos, let me know, and I'll do more of them like that. Like this. If you prefer them to be shorter, I can do edited down versions. But I do enjoy, like I said, letting everyone see how long the process actually takes, rather than hiding the fact of how long things like this really take. And yeah, it's like I said, I'll also put time codes in the description if I remember. Okay. So that's the Agrax, and what I will do, I'm going to force dry this, so we'll have a bit more hair dryer. Right, and now that's started to dry, I'm going to put a coat of Nuln Oil over the top. So I do like mixing Nuln Oil and the Agrax Earthshade. It gives a really nice dark, dirty kind of finish to the look of things. I think that's even enough over it. And then again with this, like I did with the last one, I am going to hit it with the hairdryer. Okay, and then let's get a dry brush. There we go, and I'm going to put a very small amount of grey cere dry brushed onto that base. So let's put a little bit on the dry brush and then take most of it off, and then let's have a little careful go at this. That's all right. Okay. I am going to call this Legion of the Damned model complete. Let's hold it up against my other one. So I've now got 2 members. And yeah, please let me know what you think. Let me know if you've got any ideas for other members of this squad or other models I could work on. But for now, I'd just like to say thank you for all of my new subscribers. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name's John, and you've been watching War Games, Models, and Other Hobbies.